And we are back. Uh, if consistency is key, um, I think we've unlocked this because we've been consistent for a few weeks now. Today is Friday, around the same time that we generally record, and here we are again. I will be honest though, I am not in the mood to record, to be on camera. Um, But here we are. I feel like I have to be a man of my word, and that's why I'm here. I will admit, though, if allow me the grace to be human, and in moments where I am absent or I can't be here, just know that it's not intentional, but it is natural and normal. But we have a few things to talk about today, but we're gonna start off how we always start off with a exercise in mindfulness, just being present in the moment. I think there's a lot happening in life, in our own personal lives, in the greater life, in the greater universe, and in order for us to kind of come in this space and be the best version of ourselves, we need to be here and present. So let's do, as always, 10 seconds. Focus on your breath, eyes closed, starting now. And as always, I like to get us all going with a brain teaser. The one I have for you today is: forward I am heavy, but backward I am not. What am I? Forward I am heavy, but backward I am not. What am I? Today is Friday. Friday is one of my it's the end of the week, but it's one of my less intense days, which is interesting. And the reason is because I get to I get up an hour later than I normally do throughout the week on Fridays. And the first thing I pardon my voice and trying to adjust that. I'm still getting over whatever this is. But on Fridays, I wake up to a yoga session. I found my mat again, which is something that I'm proud of. I started yoga years ago, maybe like about 14, 15 years ago. And when I found Shavasana in yoga, that calm state, it's when I found meditation. And then once I realized that I can meditate without having to go through the the flow and find Shavasana without having to go through the flow, then I just went straight to it and avoided the practice itself. But I found back my mat, and that's something that I look forward to, especially Fridays is usually when I find the mat. But I woke up and well, this is after yesterday. I wasn't necessarily feeling my best yesterday. It was a long day, and it was one of those days. And this morning, I woke up with a better, more self. Well, obviously I was self aware because I knew what I was experiencing, what I was going through. But I woke up today with a new outlook, a new mindset. Usually, knowledge comes in the morning, but it's almost like a reset, a refresh. So I was, after finding my mat and after experiencing Shavasana, and just that sense of calm, I decided to record, and here we are. It's interesting because in a lot of aspects of my life, I've always been in control. in relationships, in partnerships, in business, in you name it, I've always assumed some level of control. And I used to always think it's not intentional. Well, I still believe it's not intentional. I feel like who I am as a person, it is almost natural or instinctual for me to assume some sort of leadership position, just to be in control. And one of the reasons I always tell people is because I know that when I do things, it's for the best interest of not only myself but the people around me. And I don't know that everybody views it in the same way. I think a lot of people take lead and control, but it's self-centered and for their own self-interest. For me, it's like I always take into consideration everybody involved, and that's why I've always assumed that, because I know that everybody's accounted for when I'm in control. So I've always assumed, again, some level of responsibility and control, and then that has always poured or spilled into my creative life and my creativity. And we had talked about before the idea of having creative control, and that's something that I never want to lose. And I realized that I am my most uncomfortable, if that's the right word here, or my most uneasy when I'm not in control, especially when I'm not in control of my own life. And that's hard. That's a hard concept for me to grasp. This idea that things are happening around me and I'm just supposed to sit back and wait for either a decision to be made or an outcome that I have no influence on. That is foreign to me. It is a odd position to be in. I throughout my entire life to this point, I've never learned how to deal with that. Because, again, this idea of sitting and waiting and having something or someone that much, or given something or someone that much power over direction or over outcome, it's unsettling. It is something that I don't know how to feel comfortable in. And I've always been the person to say that I'm uncomfortable being comfortable. I prefer uncomfortability, but at least with some level of control. And what I realize is, what am I supposed to do? Or what I'm asking myself is, what am I supposed to do in these particular situations where I'm just supposed to sit and wait? And I've positioned myself in a way that I am the founder and CEO of my businesses. When I'm teaching, I take on the instructor role. I'm a parent. Like all these, I assume all these head of household leadership, head of this position, and then I find myself in a vulnerable state where, in positions of partnerships, or when I'm trying to build or do something, when I have to relinquish some level of control because the decision is ultimately not mine to make. And this is what my last week has been. In business, I'm waiting for a counterpart, a business opportunity, a partner, to make a decision that could potentially affect the impact of, can potentially impact the trajectory of my business, and my personal brand. And personally, I'm relying on some other entity to decide whether or not this thing happens for me. And they're both happening at the exact same time. And if I'm honest, this is not a space that ideally I would want to be in. I don't like feeling dependent. I don't like feeling handicapped in any way. I don't know if that's just my personality. I don't know if it has to do with my upbringing. I don't know what exactly can I tie this to? This headstrong, this this need to always be in the driver's seat. And what I realize is in these particular moments, the one thing that I can always go back to is my creativity, and back to the idea of creative control. And what I realize is whenever I find myself in a position where I feel like I am not in complete control, where I am dependent on another person or another entity, that could possibly impact the trajectory of anything pertinent to my life. One of the things I do is just go back to my creativity, because my creativity allows me to set the timeline. It is my creativity that allows me to set the direction. It is my creativity that decides whether this is complete or incomplete. It is my creativity that decides whether the message has been delivered or this is still a work in progress. It is my creativity that decides all of that. No one else is in control. And ultimately, that reminds me of the level of control that I have over my own life. Because my life is a manifestation of my own creativity. That's one of the things we talked about in the last conversation, is just this idea of being aligned, being on path, and going with the direction of your creative journey. And if my life is a manifestation of my creativity, and my creativity is in my control, then through deduction, I can honestly say that I am in control of my own life. And then creativity allows me to decide the future of whatever it is that I'm working on, whatever it is that I'm building. It takes me from this idea of being dependent to independence, where I no longer have to wait to accomplish anything. And sometimes it has to be my escape. And in this particular moment, on this particular day, creativity, sole purpose is to give me back control. Because I need that. I need that right now. This is what I need in this particular moment, to regain control of my own existence. And fortunately and unfortunately, two things can be true. So that's a conversation I had recently. It's like the dichotomy of life. Two things can be particularly true. Two opposing thoughts can be true all at the same time. Assuming leadership roles or having control in the world that you created does not mean that you have control outside of the world that you exist in. And sometimes these moments are humbling because it reminds me that as big as I might believe that I am, and as far-reaching as I think my impact is, and as inspiring as I think I could potentially be, I am only one of many. I still believe none as unique as I am, but that's a conversation for another time. But I am only such in a larger universe, in a larger world. And dependency in some capacity is expected. So as much as creativity can give me control, in reality, creativity is just offering me balance. To understand that there's going to be times that I am not in control. And in those moments, I need to be able to find balance. And before I found my creativity, I used to always go back to I think it's a Latin phrase that my mom used to say, que sera, sera. What will be, will be. And in those moments that you don't have any control, that's what you go back to and said, hey, what will be, will be. And it's almost like I step aside to the will of the universe, to the will of God, to the will of whatever it is that you believe in. But again, and that is faith, and but the idea of being helpless or needing help is still foreign to me. It still takes some getting used to. And in those moments, rather than just sitting back and waiting, creativity allows me to be able to take proactive control of my life, an active control in the direction of it. Gives me the opportunity to build, to create, to manifest, to guide all the things that having control affords you. It also reminds me that I don't need permission to be creative. I don't need a yes from anybody else for me to be creative. And as much as that means I don't need a yes to move forward, it also means I don't need a no to stop. And if I'm in full control of that, of my own motion, that means I'm going on my own journey at my own pace. And that allows me to not have to measure myself against somebody in their own particular race. And I think that's another level of control that is almost subconscious, right? If I am responsible for the pace that I'm on, then I cannot be measured by somebody else's pace because they're running a completely different race at their own pace. And their creativity allows them to move at a cadence that might not necessarily match mine. But both of us simultaneously are in full control in that particular moment. And that's what I have to keep reminding myself. That as much as I am in a position at this particular moment where I'm reliant on factors that are outside of my control, that doesn't mean that I'm no longer in control. I think it's a realization that I exist in a world that requires some level of dependency, and complete independence I don't even know how achievable that is. I think, and maybe this is like an analogy for life in general, where we all need someone or something. Like, we can never outgrow human interaction or human dependency, which reminds me of a study. I think it was done in maybe Cal State or UCLA, where it said that we experience lack of human interaction in the same area of the brain that we experience thirst and hunger, which means that it is a vital part of human existence. And if that is the case, and we need to interact with humans, then some level of dependency is going to exist. And it's not about you needing me more than I need you, or vice versa. It is about almost a codependency, that I am here because you are here. And my dependency doesn't mean that I'm ill-equipped or dependent. It does not even mean that I'm not independent. It just reminds me that life is about this exchange that happens. And sometimes you are the receiver and not the giver. This is all, I'm uncovering this as we talk, but it is an interesting time, and there's some revelations that I'm uncovering and experiencing in my own self. With that said, I don't want to prolong this. I will end it how we started, with the brain teaser that says, "Forward I am heavy, but backwards I am not. What am I? I am a ton." As always, this is a pleasure. It will continue to be a pleasure. I look forward to these moments. And I will leave you how I always leave you. Go be great.